Okay, we're back again. Wild Robot. Chapters 40 to 49 today. And something I like to do if I'm listening to a story is imagine the characters, imagine what everything looks like in my head. And if I was reading this to you in the classroom right now, I would ask you to have a piece of paper out and to be like sketching what you're seeing. So that might be something you want to do today as you listen. Chapter 40, The Ship. Bright Bill was a flying fanatic, and his favorite place to fly was up on the grassy ridge. The robot and the gosling liked to spend afternoons up there, working on the finer points of flying, and it was on one such afternoon that they noticed something mysterious far out at sea. Bright Bill spiraled down to his mother, flopped onto the grass, and pointed to the horizon. "Mama, what is that thing?" Roz's computer brain found the right word. "That is a ship." "What's a ship?" "A ship is a large vessel used for ocean transport." Bright Bill's face scrunched up with confusion. "Used by who?" "I do not know." It was the first ship either of them had ever laid eyes on. From that distance it looked as though it were moving slowly, but it was actually racing through the waves. From that distance it looked as though it were small, but it was actually one of the largest ships ever built. The robot and the gosling watched it crawl across the ocean until it finally disappeared to the south. Where had the ship come from? Where was it going? Who was on board? Roz and Bright Bill had many questions, but no answers. Chapter 41, The Summer. On clear summer days, Roz and Bright Bill and Chit Chat liked to go exploring. They investigated the island's sandy southern point. They marveled at the windows the rainbows that curved up from the waterfall. They surveyed the forest from the branches of tall trees. They met new friendly creatures, and sometimes they met new unfriendly creatures. But the only creatures they had to worry about were the bears. One time they came upon a bear fishing in the river, and Roz whispered, "You know what to do." Bright Bill flew up and away. Chit Chat scurried home through the treetops, and Roz melted into the landscape as only she could. Later they met back at the nest and told the neighbors all about their brush with danger. On dreary summer days, they would stay inside. Roz asked Bright Bill and Chit Chat about dreaming and about flying and about eating and about all the things they could do that she could not. But the youngsters had too much energy to sit still for very long. They spent one drizzly afternoon kicking acorns around the nest. Chit Chat piled them up, and then Bright Bill swung his big foot and the acorns went flying. The little friends chased the acorns as they bounced and rolled up and spun across the floor. Then they made a new pile and kicked them again. Sometimes an acorn would bounce off Roz's body, clang, and everyone would laugh and giggle together. Even Roz laughed. "Ha, ha, ha," said the robot, trying to act natural. There's Roz and his buddies, her buddies. On clear summer evenings, they would sit outside and watch fireflies twinkling around the pond. Then they'd lie back and gaze up at the darkening sky. "That big circle is the moon," said Chit Chat. "And those little lights are called stars, and one time I tried to count them all, but I can only count to 10, so I just kept counting to 10 over and over, and I have no idea how many stars there are, but I know it's more than 10. "They are not all stars," said Roz. "Some of them are planets." "What's a planet?" said Chit Chat. "A planet is a celestial body orbiting a star." "What does celestial mean?" "Celestial means something that is in outer space." "What's outer space?" "Outer space is the universe outside the atmosphere of our planet." "What's the universe?" "The universe is everything and everywhere." "Oh, so the universe is our island." None of them would ever really understand the universe, including Roz. Her computer brain knew only so much. She could talk about the earth and the sun and the moon and the planets and a few stars and not much else. The night sky was full of streaking, shimmering, and blinking lights, and she simply couldn't identify. Clearly, Roz was not designed to be an astronomer. On dreary summer evenings, Roz and Bright Bill would curl up together, just the two of them, and listen to the rain pattering on the roof of the nest. The robot would tell stories of annoying pine cones and terrible storms and camouflaged insects. But the sound of rain always made Bright Bill sleepy, and he'd be out before his mother could ever finish a story. Chapter 42, The Strange Family. It was a sweltering afternoon, and the heat had put everyone in a bad mood. Roz was standing in the shade watching her son out on the water. The other goslings were teasing him about something when they suddenly burst into laughter, and Bright Bill turned and hurried home with a stormy expression on his face. He stomped into the garden and right past his mother without saying a word. "What's wrong, Bright Bill?" said Roz as she followed her son into the nest. "Nothing," he squawked. "Leave me alone." "Tell me what is wrong." "I don't want to talk about it." "Maybe I can help." "Mama, the other goslings were making fun of me." "What did they say?" "They called you a monster and then laughed at me for having a monster mother. They should know by now that I'm not a monster. Would you like me to talk to them?" "No, don't do that. That'll just make things worse." The robot sat next to her son. "Mama, I know you're a robot, but I don't understand what a robot is." "A robot is a machine. I was not born, I was built." "Who built you?" "I do not know. I do not remember being built. My very first memory is waking up on the northern shore of this island." "Were you smaller back then?" said the gosling. "No, I've always been this size." Roz looked down at her weathered body. "However, I used to be shiny like the surface of the pond. I used to stand straighter than a tree trunk. I used to speak a different language. I've not grown bigger, but I have changed very much." The robot wanted to explain things to her son, but the truth was that she understood very little about herself. It was a mystery how she had come to life on the rocky shore. It was a mystery why her computer brain knew certain things but not others. She tried to answer Bright Bill's questions, but her answers only left him more confused. "What do you mean you're not alive?" squawked Bright Bill. "It is true," said Roz. "I am not an animal. I do not eat or breathe. I am not alive." "You move and talk and think, Mama. You're definitely alive." It was impossible for such a young goose to understand technical things like computer brains and batteries and machines. The gosling was much better at understanding natural things like islands and forests and parents. Parents. The words suddenly left Bright Bill feeling uneasy. "You're not my real mother, are you?" "There are many kinds of mothers," said the robot. "Some mothers spend their whole lives caring for their young. Some lay eggs and immediately abandon them. Some care for the offspring of other mothers. I've tried to act like your mother, but no, I am not your birth mother." "Do you know what happened to my birth mother?" Roz told Bright Bill about the fateful day in spring, about how the rocks had fallen and only one egg had survived, and how she put the egg in a nest and carried it away, about how she watched over the egg until a tiny gosling hatched. Bright Bill listened carefully until she finished. "Should I stop calling you Mama?" said the gosling. "I will still act like your mother, no matter what you call me," said the robot. "I think I'll keep calling you Mama. I think I'll keep calling you son." "We're a strange family," said Bright Bill with a little smile, "but I kind of like it that way." "Me too," said Roz. Chapter 43, The Gosling Takes Off. It must be hard to have a robot for a mother. I think the hardest part for Bright Bill was all the mystery that surrounded Roz. Where had she come from? What was it like to be a robot? Would she always be there for him? These questions filled the gosling's mind, and his feelings for his mother swung between love and confusion and anger. I'm sure many of you know what that's like. Roz could sense that Bright Bill was struggling, and so she spent a lot of time talking with him about families and geese and robots. "There are other robots on the island," said the gosling during one of their talks. He'd been sitting beside his mother in the garden, but now stood and faced her. "Yes, there are others on the island," said Roz, "but they are inoperative." "Inoperative?" For a robot, being inoperative is like being dead. "Where are the dead robots?" "They're on the northern shore." "I want to see them." "I do not think that is a good idea." "Why not?" "You're still a gosling. You're too young to see dead robots. I'll take you to see them when you're older." "Mama, I'm not a gosling anymore." Bright Bill puffed out his chest. "I'm already 4 months old." "I'm sorry," said Roz, "but you cannot go." Bright Bill stomped around the garden and squawked, "This isn't fair." "I promise I'll take you to see them when you're older," said the robot. "But I want to go now." "Please calm down. You can't even fly. I could take off, and you wouldn't be able to stop me." Roz stood, and her long shadow fell across her son. The gosling could feel his emotions swinging wildly, and for a moment he was actually afraid of his own mother. Without thinking, he sprinted toward the pond, beat his wings, and flew away. Chapter 44, The Runaway. "Your son will be fine," said Loudwing. "You know how they are at this age." "I do not know," said Roz. "Please tell me how they are at this age." "Oh, right. Well, Bright Bill is growing up fast. It's only natural for adolescent goslings to be a little moody. He just needs to be alone for a while. You've raised a wonderful son. I know he'll come home soon. Try not to worry." But Roz did worry. At least, she worried as much as a robot is capable of worrying. Brightbill had never run away or flown away, and suddenly Roz was computing all the things that could go wrong. A violent storm, a broken wing, a predator. She had to find her son before something bad happened. There was only one place Brightbill could have gone: the robot gravesite. So Roz galloped northward. She leaped over rocks and ducked under branches and charged through meadows without ever slowing her pace. She raced all the way across the island until she finally stepped onto the sea cliffs above the gravesite. And there was Brightbill, perched on the edge, looking at the robot parts scattered on the shore below. His eyes were wet. "Don't be angry," he said as his mother walked over. "I'm not angry, but you should not have flown off like that. You could have gotten hurt or worse. I was worried sick." "I'm sorry, Mama." "It's okay," said Roz. "It's only natural for goslings your age to be a little moody." "Mama, I need to understand what you are, and I think it might help to see those other robots." "You're right. It might help." "Why are you not down there?" "I was about to go," said Brightbill, "but I got nervous. I want you to go with me." "Let's go down there," said Roz, "together." Chapter 45, The Dead Robots. The gosling floated on the breeze beside his mother as she climbed down the cliffside. Down they went past ledges and seagulls and tough little trees until they were standing on the rocky shore with the cliffs looming behind them. The gravesite had changed. Roz's crate was gone, lost to weather or waves. Some of the robot parts were gone too. Other parts were gritty with sand or were tangled in seaweed or were inhabited by small, scuttling creatures. One smashed torso still had a head and legs attached. Roz and Brightbill huddled around the corpse and studied the mess of tubes spilling out. "This thing used to look like you," said Brightbill. "Yes, we are the same type of robot," said Roz. "And now, this robot is dead." "In a way. Will you ever die, Mama?" "I think so." "Will I die?" "All living things die eventually." The gosling's face scrunched with worry. "Brightbill, you're going to live a long and happy life." Roz laid a hand on her son's back. "You should not worry about death." The gosling's face relaxed, and then he pointed to a small round shape on the back of the dead robot's head. "What's that?" he said. Roz leaned in closer. "That is a button, which is a knob on a piece of machinery that can be pressed to operate it." Brightbill began pressing the button. Click, click, click. "Nothing's happening," he said. "Probably because this robot is dead." Click, click, click. "Mama, do you have a button?" Brightbill watched as his mother's head turned all the way around and a small button came into view. "You've got one," he said. "I never noticed it before." "Neither did I," said the robot. The gosling giggled. "Oh, Mama, you have so much to learn about yourself." Roz reached for the button on her head, but her hand automatically stopped before she could touch it. She tried with her other hand, but it automatically stopped as well. "It seems I cannot press the button," she said. "Would you like to try?" "What will happen?" "I think that I will shut down. But I think you could simply press the button again to restart me." "You think?" squawked Brightbill. "What if you're wrong? What if you wake up different? What if you never wake up? Mama, I do not want to shut you down." Roz turned her head back around and saw that Brightbill's face was once again scrunched with worry. She knelt beside him. "Of course you do not have to shut me down. I am sorry if I scared you. Are you okay?" "I'm okay," Brightbill sniffled and wiped his eyes. And then he heard splashing. Otters were playing in the ocean. He had never seen otters before. He stared as they swam and dove and sloshed around with one another. They seemed to be having a ridiculous amount of fun, and suddenly the gosling was smiling again. "Hello, my name is Brightbill," he shouted over the waves, "and this is my mama. Her name is Roz." The last time those otters had seen Roz, they had thought she was some kind of monster, but since then they'd heard that she was remarkably friendly and that she'd even adopted an orphan gosling. And so the otters smiled at Roz and Brightbill. Then they swam straight over and splashed onto the rocks. "Hello there," said the biggest otter. "Nice to meet you both." "Actually, Roz, we've met once before, but you might not remember me. My name's Shelley." "I do remember you," said the robot, "but I'm glad to learn your name, Shelley." "You know each other?" said the gosling. These otters were the first animals I ever met, said Roz. They were also the first animals who ever ran away from me. Yeah, sorry about that, said Shelley as the other otters sniffed the robot's legs. You know, Brightbill, when we first saw your mom, she was packed in a box and surrounded by soft, squishy stuff. Brightbill's brow furrowed. You wouldn't believe how small she looked, all folded up in there. Brightbill's nose sniffled. We thought she was dead, but when we reached into the box, she came to life and climbed out looking like a sparkling monster. Brightbill's eyes welled up with tears, and then he felt his mother scoop him into her arms. Are you okay? She whispered in his ear. I think I've learned enough about robots for today, he whispered back. I'm sorry, Otter, said Roz, but we really must be going. I hope I didn't upset the little guy, said Shelley. I thought he'd like to hear how we first met. Brightbill will be fine, said Roz, using a friendly voice. But we've had a very busy day and we should go home. It was nice to see you again. Goodbye. Roz turned, and with her long stride, she carried her son away from the gravesite and over to the base of the sea cliffs. Would you like to sit on my shoulder as I climb, said the robot. I feel like flying, said the gosling. I'll meet you at the top. Brightbill flapped his wings and disappeared into the sky. Roz began scaling the wall. Up she went, expertly negotiating rocky columns and ledges until she hoisted herself onto the cliff top where two young bears were waiting. Chapter 46. The Fight. Hello, bears. My name is Roz. Oh, we know who you are, said the sister bear. Her voice dripped with sarcasm. We're very happy to see you again. Yeah, we're very happy to see you again, echoed the brother bear. Why do you always repeat what I say, said the sister bear to her brother. It's so annoying. I was just backing you up. Let me do the talking. Fine, you don't have to be so mean about it. The bickering bears were interrupted by the robot's friendliest voice. With whom do I have the pleasure of speaking? How rude of us, said the sister bear. My name is Nettle, and this is my brother, Thorn. I'm not little, snapped Thorn under his breath. It's lovely to meet you both, said Roz, but I am afraid I really must be going. And I'm afraid we can't let you do that, Nettle. Nettle stepped into Roz's path. My brother and I, we don't like monsters. I'm not a monster, I'm a robot. Whatever you are, we don't like you, said Thorn. We hear you've become very comfortable on our island, said Nettle. Now we're going to make you very uncomfortable. Yeah, we're going to make you very uncomfortable. Stop repeating me, Thorn. Poor Roz was in serious trouble. The bears were closing in on her, but she couldn't run, she couldn't hide, and she couldn't fight. The robot didn't know what to do, but before she could do anything, there was a loud squawk and a streak of feathers. Stay away from my mama! Brightbill swooped down and skidded to a stop between the robot and the bears. So the rumors are true, Nettle laughed. There really is a runty gosling who thinks the robot is his mother. How could anyone be so stupid? Do yourself a favor, gosling, and fly away before you get hurt. She's right, Brightbill, said Roz. Please let me handle this. But the gosling stood his ground. He spread his wings and hopped around, ready to defend his mother. The bears roared with laughter. Then, with a flick of her paw, Nettle sent Brightbill tumbling over the ground, over and over, until he flopped onto his back and stared up at the sky, stunned. This is our island, snarled Nettle, and it's time for you to go, growled Thorn. Roz made herself as big as possible. She banged her chest and roared wild, angry sounds. But the bears were not intimidated. They roared right back, and then they attacked. Nettle pulled Roz into a fierce bear hug while Thorn clawed at her legs. The robot tried to shake free, but the bears would not let go of their prey. Not this time. A cloud of dust bloomed around the trio as they thrashed closer to the edge of the cliff. All of a sudden, something burst out from the trees and on to the open cliff top. Mother Bear. She was gigantic, like a mountain of golden fur, and she was furious. It seemed like this would be the end for our robot. But Mother Bear wasn't there to join the fight. She was there to break it up. Nettle, Thorn, get over here this instant. The young bears should have listened to their mother. Instead, they pretended not to hear her. Nettle slashed at Roz's body, and Thorn began wrestling with her foot. He grabbed the foot with both paws and forced it up from the ground. Then, with every ounce of his strength, he twisted the foot around. Reader, the The following events happened very quickly. First, there was a strange sound as the robot's right foot popped off her leg and sailed through the air. Then everyone toppled over. Nettle and Roz fell sideways along the edge, but Thorn fell backwards and tumbled right off the cliff. Do you know what the most terrible sound in the world is? It's the howl of a mother bear as she watches her cub tumble off a cliff. Mother Bear's howl was so startling that it snapped Brightbill right out of his stupor. Her howl was so powerful that it shook Roz's entire body. Her howl was so loud that animals heard it clear across the island, but there was no reply from Thorn. Mother Bear's howl slowly faded, and she wilted to the ground. Roz watched as her detached foot sailed over the edge and plummeted down to the shore below. It fell past circling seagulls, smashed off a rock, and disappeared into the waves. And that's when the robot noticed something furry dangling from the cliffside. Thorn! His full weight hung from a tree that was rooted to the rock wall. He gripped the tree tightly in his jaws and looked up at Roz with wide, frightened eyes. I see Thorn, shouted Roz. Grab my legs quickly. Mother Bear and Nettle scrambled to their feet. Each bear took a leg in her mouth, and together they slowly lowered Roz head first down the cliff. Thorn whimpered through clenched teeth as he watched the robot approach. Then he felt her strong arms wrap around him and heard her booming voice holler, Pull us up! Thorn let go of the branch and cried, Please don't drop me, Roz. I don't want to die. Don't worry, said the robot. I will not drop you. The next few moments seemed to drag on and on. Mother Bear and Nettle kept pulling on Roz's legs, and more of the robot slowly came into view until a furry golden head finally appeared, and Thorn leaped into the embrace of his family. Chapter 47, The Parade. Does it hurt? Brightbill touched the smooth surface where his mother's foot used to be. No, it does not hurt, said Roz, but it will be difficult for me to walk. The bears huddled behind the gosling and stared at the robot's stump of a leg. Nobody understood how a foot could pop off like that, or how Roz could remain calm. Roz, I'm sorry my cubs attacked you, said Mother Bear. Sometimes they're completely out of control. It's okay. You know how they are at this age. I can't thank you enough for saving Thorn. I promise my cubs will never bother you again. Isn't that right? Yes, Mother, said Nettle and Thorn together. The robot tried to walk. She bobbed up and down on her uneven legs, which worked well enough on the flat surface of the cliff top, but once she entered the forest, her problem became clear. The smooth stump had no grip, and it slipped around on the forest floor. So Roz tried hopping on her one good foot. She took a few crunching hops and then clanged into a tree trunk. A few more hops, and she crashed into the undergrowth. I'm really sorry I broke off your foot, said Thorn as he helped the robot up from the weeds. I forgive you, said Roz. Whether she was capable of true forgiveness is anybody's guess. But there were nice weeds, and Thorn felt better when he heard them. It looks like I'll have to crawl home, said Roz. Nonsense, said Mother Bear. I have a better idea. Mother Bear lay flat on the ground while her clubs boosted Roz onto her back. Can you hear my daughter crying? I just have to tell her dad to come get her. Okay. Mother Bear lay flat on her ground while her clubs boosted Roz onto her back. Then Brightbill fluttered onto the bear's broad shoulders, and when they were both safely aboard, the group set off through the forest. The robot was heavy, but she was no trouble for the giant animal. Mother Bear strolled along as if it were perfectly normal for a robot to be riding on her back. They made quite a grand procession, all walking together like that, and the procession became even grander as deer and raccoons and birds and all kinds of other animals joined in. Everyone wanted to see the mother robot riding the mother bear. There they are. The group wound its way past ancient trees and over rolling meadows and through babbling streams, collecting more and more curious animals as they went. It was the grandest parade of wildlife anyone had ever seen, and leading the way was our robot, Roz. But the parade couldn't last forever. As the sun went down, the other animals began drifting away one by one. And when the parade finally arrived at the nest, only the original members remained. "Here we are," said Mother Bear, helping Roz down into the garden. "Now, wasn't that better than crawling all the way home?" "Oh, yes, that was wonderful," said the robot. "I cannot imagine a better ending to this day. Thank you very much." "Yeah, that was amazing," squeaked Gosling. "My friends won't believe me when I tell them I rode across the island on the back of a bear." "I'm glad you enjoyed yourselves," Mother Bear smiled. "It's the least I could do after all the trouble these two caused." Her smile became a frown, and she glared at her cubs, who suddenly took great interest in a pebble on the ground. It was late and had been a long, difficult day for everyone, so the bears said goodbye and headed back to their cave. Brightbill and Roz stood in the garden and watched their new friends lumber away. And then the gosling said, "Mama, do you think you'll ever walk again?" "I'm not sure," said the robot, "but I know who to ask for help. Now go get ready for bed." Chapter 48, The New Foot. Mr. Beaver squinted at Roz's stump. "I've never built a foot before." He stroked his whiskers and muttered to himself, "There are really 3 problems to solve. The foot needs to grip the ground, and it needs to be durable. And then there's the issue of fixing it to the leg. I might have to consult a few friends." "Will she ever walk again?" said Brightbill. "What's that?" Mr. Beaver was lost in thought. "Oh, not to worry. You just sit back and leave everything to me. I love a challenge." Mr. Beaver plunked into the pond and returned a while later, rolling a large section of a tree trunk. "Say hello to your new foot," he said, slapping the wood with his tail. "Hello, new foot," said the robot. "That's the spirit. This beauty is from one of the hardest trees I've ever chewed. I just need to make a few modifications." Mr. Beaver placed the piece of wood next to Roz. He squinted, repositioned the piece, and squinted some more. With his claws, he marked different spots on the wood, and then he put his big chompers to work. The beaver chewed and gnawed and carved up that piece of wood, turning it over and over in his paws. Chit-Chat looked down from a branch and chattered through the quiet moments. "This reminds me of the time I saw a fox catch a lizard by the tail, and somehow the lizard's tail fell off, and he got away. And later I saw that the lizard got a new tail, and now Roz is going to get a new foot, and everything will be fine." The wooden foot took shape, and before long Mr. Beaver was standing beside a beautiful carving that resembled a boot. He tried to slide it over Roz's stump, but the opening was too small, so he scraped out more wood until it was a perfect fit. "Very good," he said, spitting out a wood chip. "My friends should be arriving any minute with the next few things we'll need." And there they are now. "I'd like you all to meet Bumpkin, Lumpkin, and Rumpkin, but I call them the Fuzzy Bandits." 3 fat raccoons shuffled into the garden, dragging a tangle of vines behind them. "Good day," said Bumpkin. "Good day," said Lumpkin. "Good day," said Rumpkin. You might already know this, reader, but raccoons have very nimble hands, and the Fuzzy Bandits used theirs to skillfully tie those vines around the robot's leg and around her new foot. The vines caught nicely on all the dings and dents and scrapes. Once they were tied good and tight, Mr. Beaver threw back his head and hollered, "Trunk tap! We could use your assistance." There was silence, and then 3 quick taps echoed down from the forest canopy. "Ah, that'll be him," said Mr. Beaver, smiling. A very handsome woodpecker swooped into the garden. "You called?" came the woodpecker's musical voice. "Indeed I did. Everyone, this is my woodpecking pal, Trunk Tap. Now, Trunky, we need some tree resin. The real sticky stuff. Can you help us out?" "Of course I can," said the woodpecker. "You've got a perfect pine right there." Trunk Tap hopped over to a crusty old pine tree and pecked a few deep holes in the bark. Thick, syrupy resin began oozing down the trunk. Mr. Beaver scooped up handfuls of the resin and smeared it all over the wooden foot and the vines until everything was glistening with stickiness. And when the resin dried a short time later, Roz's foot was finished. "This is wonderful," said the robot as she strolled around her garden. "I am as good as new." Mr. Beaver and Trunk Tap and the Fuzzy Bandits went away feeling pretty happy with themselves. They'd done a very nice thing, but it was the first wooden foot any of them had ever made. And within a week, the vines were coming undone and the foot was sliding loose. So they returned, determined to get it right. They found even harder wood and even tougher vines. They experimented with resin, heating it by the fire, letting it boil and thicken until it became an indestructible glue. They kept tinkering with their design until finally Roz had herself a wooden foot that she could rely on. Huzzah! Mr. Beaver rapped his knuckles on the new and improved creation. I knew we'd get it right. Roz moved slower than before, and she had a slight limp, but she was back to her old self again, and that was a relief to everyone, especially Bright Bill. Chapter 49, The Flyer. With coaching from his mother, Bright Bill was becoming a truly exceptional flyer. He wasn't the biggest or the strongest, but he was the smartest. You see, he and his mother had started studying the flying techniques of other birds. They'd sit for hours and watch how hawks and owls and sparrows and vultures moved through the air. Then they'd go up to the grassy ridge, and Bright Bill would practice what he'd learned. Soon, he was diving and swooping and darting and soaring around the island. The adult geese frowned at his flying tricks, but the goslings thought he was amazing. Each morning, a gaggle of them would wait on the water for Bright Bill to lead them into the sky. And then a few hours later, he returned home to Roz, shaking his tail feathers and honking about his latest airborne adventures. Mama, the other goslings didn't know that warm air rises, so I found an updraft and we spent the afternoon circling around and around and hardly flapped our wings at all. Mama, did you see that lightning storm today? We knew there was trouble when the wind started blowing from the north, so we flew down to some shrubs and waited for the storm to pass. Mama, we just tried to fly in formation. We all took turns at the point, but everyone liked following me the best, so I led most of the time. Whew, that was a big chunk this time. But it's okay if maybe you stopped halfway through and then you came back to finish the other chapters. And sorry about a little bit of noise today, but guess that's what happens when you record at home with little people here. Thanks for being patient.